Welcome back to another episode of the Unstuck Career Podcast. I am your host, Ken Williams, and today I have with me a friend that we just met yesterday in person, not even in person. This is Jenny Treurnich from South Africa, so just down the street from Indiana, where I live. Welcome, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have met you.
Thank you so much, Ken. It's great to be here.
And we had a conversation. We actually were in the same. I've had several episodes in the last several weeks from Potapalooza, and we did not connect at Potapalooza, but we kind of connected. We connected because of Potapalooza. And
Mm.
Jenny is a mindset coach and an energy healer. And I thought this would just be a fun conversation to have because mindset is a little bit important. And
Yeah.
she's showing with her fingers just yeah, just a little bit. So what got you thinking about focusing on mindset? Where did that come from?
Well, I've always been interested in the inner work. They always say 80% of it is the inner work and 20% is your strategy. Some say 90-10. So it's really important. And it's always been an interest of mine. How do we pursue things in a better way that makes it easier to achieve what we want to achieve and in a way that is more aligned with who we are, um, rather than trying to fight up a hill, pushing a boulder. So mindset, yeah, I've just always been naturally drawn to that. And then I also take it a step further with embodiment practices. So, we can have all the mindset we want, but if we just keep it in the mind and we don't bring it consciously into the body and make it essentially our new normal, so we don't have to keep thinking of it. There's some really handy tools that we can use to bring us into present moment awareness, but you ideally want to get to a point eventually where you don't need the tools and it's just your natural state of being. Yeah.
Right. You said something that caught my attention. It was something about, and I don't know if I'll be able to repeat it exactly, but um, something about who we really are and
Yeah.
being aligned with who we really are. And there's often a mismatch from who we think we are and who we really are. How
Yeah.
do, why does this happen? First of all, why does it happen that we have this mismatch that we believe that we're something different? And it's never, at least in my experience, is I've never found anybody who believes that they are better or more valued or more um, worthy than they really are. We always tend to underestimate our worth or our value, our importance. Why is
Yeah.
that?
It's, and to be honest, I think it's even more the case with women.
Mhm.
I know that's somewhat of a generalization, so it's not true of every man and every woman, obviously, but there is a sense of, for example, the stats, and I can't remember the exact numbers, so don't quote me exactly, but it's something in the vicinity of a man needs to be around 20% certain of what he's saying to speak up.
Mm.
And with women, it's more like 80%. So it's quite a difference from that point of view. So with women as well, we've been very often kind of over time and history made to fit into certain things where we feel we have this glass ceiling and we can't reach certain things. But I think in some cases it's true of all of us, men and women, where we operating within these programs of, oh, I can't possibly do that, I'm not good enough, or oh, I'm too much, or I'm not enough, or these set programs that we operate within. So, and if you think about it, we're generally much kinder to other people than we can be to ourselves. So we will look at other people and uplift them and go, yeah, of course you can do that, and can see the possibility in you. And often we, unless we've done a whole lot of work on it, we sometimes don't give ourselves that same credit. We're like, oh, I can see I really want to do this thing and I want to achieve this, but oh no, no, it couldn't possibly be for me. So there's often this disconnect. And in a lot of time, it's old programming essentially that's running, stories we've been told, sometimes in childhood, sometimes from people later in our life. And it forms these beliefs about what we can and cannot do. And yeah, in many cases, it's just a case of actually dropping that. But it sometimes takes some doing. And a lot of it's unconscious mind.
Things that have struck me recently is number one, the lessons that my parents, for example, taught me, the words that they said were not the same as the messages that I received, which was really interesting for me to understand. I was talking to my sister, same parents, we're not that different in age, but the lessons that I learned, for example, the lesson that I learned about money was that money is hard to get. And I asked my sister, is money easy or hard? She said, it's easy. So the lesson, the same parenting, and it was not the words. It was the messaging that I, with my makeup, absorbed was that it's hard to find success. It's hard to be um, all these different things, and it is not what my mom or my dad taught me. The other thing is as we're recording this in the United States, we just I don't want to say celebrated because it's not a celebration, but we just changed our clocks for daylight savings time. And we did, I guess it's daylight saving, not savings. But in South Africa, you don't have daylight saving time. And I realized this is just something that somebody made up. Somebody decided, oh, we should have um, daylight hours in the evening instead of in the morning. So let's make it so that we're just going to shift everything, not necessarily paying attention to where the sun is in the sky. Let's just decide that now instead of 8 p.m., it's now 9 p.m., and we can have this later um, uh, daylight. And it got me thinking, how many other things in our lives do
Exactly.
we believe just because, and we just accept them as fact?
It's just community buy-in.
Yeah,
It's an agreement that we've made, either consciously, in some cases, subconsciously, to accept something as the way it is. I mean, money itself only has value because we've all agreed that it does. The actual pieces of paper, it's a piece
and
of
even
paper
if you
with
go to
things written
gold,
on it, right? We've given it value because that's the communal agreement to, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's
oh no, no,
simply an observation that many things in our life are like that. We've all agreed. So it makes you wonder how much else is on an unconscious level where
right,
we've agreed to way more subtle things that aren't actually serving us,
right.
but it's just we kind of think it's the way it is. It's
Yeah.
maybe
Oh,
not the way it is at all, but we've told ourselves that. And so over time we believe it. And we
that's
keep
mindset.
repeating actions that have the same outcomes because we've told ourselves some old story.
That's what mindset is we have this on this I'll call it program because I think it is programmed. I don't know that it was necessarily intentionally programmed, but
Yeah.
we have this programmed idea that because I'm a white American, this is what I'm capable of, or because I'm a um, whatever it is, because I have this job title, because I have this salary, this income, because I have this particular skill, that I have a different value than somebody who doesn't have that same job title or income or skill or whatever. And it's just the whole thing is made up. And I agree with you. It's not,
Yeah.
we're not saying that that's bad, but I think for me, as I have started realizing this, that I'm believing things just because somebody, whether it was my mom or my fourth grade teacher or my grandparents, or somebody just said this is true, and it doesn't mean that it's really true. And so as we start to challenge that a little bit in our minds, then we can at least start to see that that's not necessarily serving us well. So when you talk about embodying or having practices to take it out of the subconscious, why is that something that gets to be important?
Because often we're just operating from our head bubble.
Hmm.
So we have these thoughts that circulate over and over, around and around. I mean, sometimes we spend time telling ourselves the same stories or repeating a conversation that happened in some cases years ago. There's literally no point to doing this. And we will kind of obsess over it and replay it or come out with a better outcome, or even just in as things are happening. But we tell ourselves a story and then play it around in our head. And we're missing out. We're then no longer in present moment awareness, and we're missing out on taking in what's really around us and taking in that information. And secondly, we're not bringing in our experiences into our body where we can see whether it's really true for us. So it's about embodying, on one hand, your emotions so that you feel your emotions and you don't have to dwell in it and, but it's processing it through the cells of your body so that you're living more fully. You process those emotions and then release them from your cells. And secondly, embodying what is true for you. Like sometimes we hear something and okay, I'm going to get a little woo-woo. I don't know how woo-woo your listeners are, but speaking
Right.
about the chakras, for instance, the energy centers down the body, we can hear something or attend a course. And then after, and we're so excited and it makes sense to us and we really like what we're hearing. And then we go to tell someone else about it and we literally can't. We don't know what to say because it stayed in our head. It didn't even reach our throat chakra. So we could actually go, okay, is this something I can talk about? Or bringing it further down into our body to go, is this true for me? Does this resonate with me? Is it my truth? If you think about it, everything you hear, you're matching it to something you already know to go, is this true? Does this make sense to me? If someone says the sky's red, you're going to go, no, that doesn't match with what I already know. So, on some level, we already know things, and everything we hear, we're now judging against our knowing. But sometimes we lose a little bit of touch with that process, and things are just kind of bouncing off us, and so much is going on, and everything is really quick these days, and we're getting bombarded with so much information that we sometimes don't take that time to really sit with things, focus on, does this feel right in my body? Is this true for me? And, am I going to take that on or am I not? And release what doesn't work for us. Because what's true for someone else may not be true for us.
Yeah, and there's so much going on. And our brain is designed to filter so many things out.
Yeah.
Um, One of the problems that I see is that we start to match up things that are, I'll put it in air quotes, true, but it's a fake true. It's a so for example, and I've shared the example on the I think on the podcast before. If you're watching the video, then this will make more sense. But when I was in junior high, when I was in school, I hated my hair. I hated it because it would stick up, and it is getting long enough that I need to get it cut probably this week or next. But it would stick up, and I I, I had a friend who was his hair was just it was so perfect. It laid flat. It went exactly where it was supposed to. I have cowlicks. I have it. It just doesn't go the way that I wanted. And so for years, every time I heard anybody comment on my hair, I was matching it up to this idea that it's my hair is a disaster area. And it, it was not objectively, it was not helpful for me. But also, um, I heard somebody say that they had hair envy of me. And I thought, why? Why would you want this disaster? And I finally realized because his hair was fine, but he had a bald spot, which I do not have a bald spot. And I realized, oh, there are people that look at this rat's nest and envy it because of they don't know how how awful it is to tame this. I don't spend a whole lot of time on my hair, but the point is that there are a lot of times that we adopt uh, incorrect or unhelpful beliefs about ourselves, and still everything that we hear. I had a friend who said, "Hey, nice haircut," and what I heard was, "Hey, nice haircut," and the words were the same, but the tone that I heard supported my quote truth that this is a mess on top of my head. And it wasn't until um, I really had this confrontation with a different way of looking at the quote truth that I realized, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about what I think about myself. And so as I have started to play around with that, maybe I'm wrong. I grew up thinking that I was shy. Maybe I'm wrong. I grew up thinking that I didn't have a talent with whatever. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And um, that's been eye-opening for me in a lot of ways. So as you work with people on mindset, how much of that do you see where people's beliefs
A
about
lot.
themselves are just
Yeah.
inconsistent with objective
No,
reality?
a lot. It's these labels that we put on ourselves for often no reason at all. And that's going back to what you were saying as well about when you heard the words, it reinforced your belief. That's perception bias. It's actually how our brains work, where we will actually disregard, we won't even really hear, in some cases, opinions that are different to ours or our worldview. Obviously, as you get more of a growth mindset, the point is taking in more points of view, more viewpoints, so that you're not just fixed in your own viewpoint. But like generally, as humanity, a thing we do is to filter out what doesn't make sense to us or doesn't agree with us, and we don't even realize that we're really doing that. So we will hear and interpret things that back up what we're thinking. Of course, now with social media algorithms, it's even more because it's forced to us where we only see what matches our own viewpoints and the rest doesn't even get to us in some cases. But even when things do get to us, we sometimes don't hear it because we've cemented this pathway in our brains of how things are. So yeah, I see that a lot. And it's a case of peeling back these layers and dropping these things that A, they're not true, and B, they're just not helpful and they don't work for us and they hold us back.
So do you find that people are open to the idea that they're wrong about and wrong about worldviews? That might be interesting to discuss, but I think it's more powerful to realize where we're wrong about ourselves. Um,
Yeah.
I work with people to get unstuck, and the reason that they're stuck is that they're wrong about themselves in some regard.
Yeah, I don't necessarily even like the word wrong because I think we're all constantly evolving.
Mm,
We're on a spiral in an expanding universe, constantly evolving, and everything that is, call it suboptimal or what we would label as mistakes or wrong, is simply learning. We
mm.
learn from that, we move on. The key is getting to do that without lingering over that, getting the lesson from it so we can fall forward and do it better next time, but not lingering within this. So yeah, I wouldn't really for myself frame it as to someone as your worldview is wrong, because who am I to say their worldview is right or wrong? Their worldview might be perfectly right for them. It's more that there's also other viewpoints and there's other information which they may not be seeing. So it's simply broadening the scope to take in new information, look at it, and again go, is this true for me? Um, I just lost my train of thought. So ask the next question. I had an
Okay.
extra thing. Maybe it'll come back to me.
I'm curious about how when that and I like the idea of not considering these traits as right or wrong, but maybe supportive and unsupportive, or
Yeah.
helpful, unhelpful. So if somebody has a trait that's not supportive for what they want to accomplish, let's just say um, one of the things that I think is all largely universal is that we feel that we're not worthy of um, good things, whether that's the promotion or the pay raise or whatever. What what is helpful in challenging some of those unsupportive beliefs?
It's a combination of the coaching process where you're taking people through some really deep questions to uncover. You need to get below the surface and find out why someone believes what they do. In the case of, I'm not good enough, or I couldn't possibly get that. There's something that caused that. There's something that led to that pattern. So in some part of the process is coaching questions and asking the right thing to try and get to what's underneath and uncover that. And then the person has some aha, a transformation through that. And often they can just release that. But combined with that, if we just focus on conscious mind and on trying to, okay, but we've gone through the questions, we've released this. If the person doesn't release it also in the unconscious mind, they often will just revert back. So, and the vice versa as well. So it's a case of, I always bring in the unconscious mind work, which is getting to the really deep questions that are, are locked in our unconscious mind. But also I bring in energy healing and breath work to release things from the unconscious mind so that they're in agreement. Conscious mind, unconscious mind in agreement to really bring that change so that you don't suddenly, like today you've had the breakthrough and tomorrow you're back to going, yeah, but actually I don't think I'm really going to get
I was
that.
wrong.
So it's, yeah, keep it like change that lasts and then bringing it into the body, the embodiment piece. So it's a whole process.
I like that because um, it's I have a mentor who the way he describes the subconscious is insidious. The
Yeah,
subconscious is insidious, and which
that's
means
a good word.
diabolically unhelpful. The purpose of the subconscious is to protect us, and the
Yeah,
easiest way to protect us is to not change anything, and
keep
that's
us
not very
safe.
helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
So
so
all growth is moving forward and getting out of your comfort zone essentially. And our bodies and brains, our brains specifically, are wired biologically to keep us safe, which means not changing, staying where you are so that nothing comes and eats you. So it's, that it's learning to release that and know, actually, I'm fine, I'm safe. I can step forward into what I really want to do.
right. And when you recognize that that fear is the word that I'm thinking is irrational, but it's not irrational. It's irrational. It's absolutely legitimate fear, but it's not danger.
Yeah.
It's discomfort, but it's not danger. And as soon as consciously we recognize that the fear is not protecting us from danger, it's protecting us from discomfort, then I've found that it's easier to step into doing something that's really uncomfortable. And the other thing that has been shocking to me every single time that I've done this is, and I can't think of a better way to describe it than the fear is not nearly as deep as it appears from the outside. And so, an example is when I was in college, I decided to go skydiving. I did a tandem jump, and it was so exhilarating. And when you're 18 years old, you do make different decisions than you might at different ages.
You're
But
speaking my language. I was a skydiver for 15 years.
really,
I love it.
that's
Yeah.
incredible. So I went this one time and I did it partly because I could. And my parents were a couple thousand miles away. They couldn't stop me. And I'm 18. I can do what I want now. And this was back in the pre-internet days. So I wrote my parents a letter on Friday. Dear Mom and Dad, just wanted to let you know tomorrow I'm going skydiving. And I knew there was no way they were going to get this letter before I went for them to call me and say, don't do it. And then I went on Saturday. But stepping out of the plane, a tandem jump, so I'm attached to an experienced skydiver. Stepping out of the plane, I felt like I was falling for a second. And then after that, I was just there. I was just that fear. I didn't feel like I was falling for the entire several minutes that I was falling. Um, most of that was with a parachute deployed. But that's how every single fearful experience has been. I'm reminded of a movie that I think there's some great nuggets of truth in movies, and this was the movie We Bought a Zoo, and the main character said that if you can step through, I think he said 20 seconds of fear, you can have almost anything you want. And it's not even 20 seconds. It's probably 2 seconds because then the 2 seconds you realize I'm still alive. This has
I've
not killed me
already
yet.
done this. I love the way you phrased it earlier when you were talking about that fear. You really summed that up so well. Totally agree. And also when things are, just to add to that, when things are aligned with us and it's like a soul yes, it doesn't mean we're not going to have fear around it because it's still stepping into the unknown, taking that action. But it feels, oh, it's like the fear comes up, we step into it, and then like you said, it's very short-lived and it goes away. If something is really a feeling of discomfort, of no, this isn't for me, and it's more of a discomfort or severe discomfort than fear in that case, and then that's a no. But exciting things or challenges in your business or in your personal life and stepping into that, you feel the fear, you do it anyway, and it's healthy and it's how change and growth happens. And like you said, it's seconds and then it's gone. In some cases it can be a little longer or it can come back in a spiral, but we're always moving up a level, up a level, up a level. Whereas the trick is not to go, oh, there's a slight barrier, there's a bit of fear, and stop and freeze, because then there's no progress happening.
Always, progress just starts to grow. It becomes more intimidating, more maybe even tangible, and more paralyzing. And if you just take one step, um,
Mhm.
it's nothing. And
And
it,
have you ever put something off, where I've done this often, where you put something off because it sounds so daunting and you build it up in your mind as this big thing. And when you finally do it, you're like, seriously, was that all? Why did I put that off? It usually it's far less scary than we thought it would be, and takes quicker, much quicker than we thought it would take. And the effort of putting it off and of building it up in your mind took far more mental energy and time and bandwidth than just simply doing the thing. And yet we tend to do that often with various things in our lives. So it becomes a way of recognizing and immediately stepping, processing quickly so that we're not wasting time on things like that.
Love
On the resistance, wasting time on the resistance itself instead of doing the thing.
that energy. We waste so much energy on the resistance. It's so exhausting.
Yeah,
And I love, I wrote it down. I love your phrase that you call it a soul yes. When you are a soul yes, this is what I want, or this is who I am, or this is 100% aligned with me at a deep, uh, soulful level, then that fear becomes less important because the
exactly.
motivation
Exactly.
is a soul yes. And
Because your
that's
why
where,
is stronger.
yeah. And I think a lot of times we're out searching for the soul yes. We're searching for the why. We're searching for the reason. And I don't think it comes that way. I think we uncover it. We
Exactly.
it I think sometimes it surprises us that
Mm.
I may have shared this story on the podcast. I don't remember, but changing the name of the podcast. We used to be the Bad Boss Podcast, and it wasn't really aligned with what we're talking about. And I went through a lot of iterations and I went through a lot of different ideas. And I knew I would recognize the right name. And I had all sorts of ideas, some of them thanks to my brother, not very helpful. But when I saw Unstuck Career, I thought that's it.
Mm.
And it just it resonated. So I think sometimes we're out looking for, and we have this idea of right versus wrong, or well, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. I have to find the right. And sometimes it's going through those, um,
The wrong gets
yeah,
you
the
to the
it's a reframing of the
wrong in
wrong.
the quotes.
It's not a
Yeah,
wrong.
it's not a wrong.
It's just it's part of the process.
Yeah, it's
And
a learning. And that coming back to the soul yes thing and people searching as as humanity is transitioning essentially into we're getting more aware, we're getting more awake. So many people are looking for their purpose, as if it's something out there that they
right.
need to like be told or find some when it's simply within us. Like find what do you really love to do? What lights you up? What brings you joy? What do you do naturally that you already doing or that you really want to do? And then follow down that track. It's a process of on one hand discovery, but on another hand, it's always been there inside us. It's something we already know.
We discount it because it's something that it doesn't seem like it's big enough or it's grandiose or important or whatever, but as I had a client that I was working with, and we discovered something that he was just naturally good at. And when we start doing those things on purpose, we are aligning with our purpose and and
Absolutely.
creating joy in ourselves
Mm.
because we're using our strengths, but we're creating value for other people. And it wasn't
Exactly.
obvious to him that he was doing that. And so that was a lot of fun just to watch that awareness. But yeah, I think that process is so unique. And maybe we'll do an episode at some point on how to find that in yourself because I think it's so valuable because your if you worry already that you don't have value to contribute to the planet, A, you're wrong, and B, that process of discovering the value that you bring is so rewarding. It's rewarding for me as a coach, but it's so wonderful to see people have that insight that, wow, I really do have something that I can offer the planet.
And like you said, sometimes people overcomplicate. We all have a human tendency to overcomplicate things, or we think if it's not complicated, it's not valuable,
Right.
when the opposite is true. And it's in those simple things of what brings you joy. I mean, maybe your purpose is what you do for a living. Maybe it's not. It doesn't have to be your job. It could be, or it could be the way you do your job, or it could be you're living your purpose in the way you do your job, in the way that you are a mother or a father or a friend or a son or a daughter, or how you approach life. What, again, what brings you joy is essentially
Yeah,
what it comes back to. And it can be as simple as that.
that's true. But when you said sometimes we overcomplicate it, that's one of the rules that we were taught.
Yeah.
I don't know that we were taught. It's one of the rules that we absorbed,
Mm,
many of us, maybe most of us, that it has to be hard.
yeah.
If it's not hard, if it's not a struggle, it's not valuable, which is why I think so many times we struggle to know what our natural gifts are. Because, well, it's not something that I worked really hard at, but
Mm.
so I love that. If you had a piece of advice, somebody who is struggling with one of these um, unhelpful stories, what advice would you give? Something that they could do that would help them kind of put some cracks in the beliefs that are not productive.
I think just a very simple mechanism. Again, it sounds too simple almost, but that's how it works, is to just sit quietly, take some deep breaths, and be in their own space. Connect with their own truth, because the wisdom is within us. And often we're looking out there, we're looking at all these things. We sometimes take other people's opinions over our own, or we're looking for a guru. The time for gurus is past. We are all our own gurus. And we have that knowledge inside us. We have the wisdom inside us. So it's just tapping into that, even if it's 1 minute, to take some deep breaths, tap into your inner knowing, and just sit quietly and go within as a simple little practice. There's obviously lots of things you can add. It's useful to get a coach in some cases. There's specific processes and tools, sure. But for one quick, simple thing that can really bring about change is going within.
Yeah. And it's not listening to is I want to say this right. The opinions of other people have been what have framed us, shaped us. It's like daylight savings time. It was just somebody's opinion. It's just somebody's opinion that your career path should look a certain way. It's just somebody's opinion that you have to be 20% or 80% certain of what you're saying before you speak up. And we've adopted those opinions, and that has then become our quote truth. And so I love that. Um, Starting to filter out what's real, what's the real me at my core, and maybe just challenge the thoughts that, well, I'm an introvert. Am I really? Am I really an introvert? Who
Mhm.
told me that I'm an introvert? How do I know? And then just playing with that. And maybe it's true, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just that this is what you've been told your whole life by somebody who has an opinion, and it's not supportive, it's not helpful, and it's not necessarily
Mm.
in your best interest.
I love that. Part of that is getting curious.
Hmm?
Like those questions you're asking. Curiosity is an amazing thing that's often not given its due. but to approach life with curiosity and to approach your own beliefs and thoughts with curiosity. Like you said it very well. Is that true?
Where did this
Let
come
me
from?
get curious about this. This is
Right.
really real for me.
It's so much fun. I feel like we can just talk for much longer than anybody wants to listen to us for. But this has been a lot of fun for me, and hopefully, um, it's helpful. So, if people wanted to learn more about you, about what you do, if they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to connect with Jenny?
Probably the easiest is my website. So it's my name.com, jennytreurnich.com. I'll spell Treurnich for those who are on audio.
Not
Can
German.
be a little tricky. So it's Jenny and then Treurnich. So my website is there. If you add a slash gift, you can go straight to my free gift, which is a quiz. So it's called Your Path to Fulfillment and Purpose Quiz. It's very simple, it's not long.
Mhm.
The point is not to rush it and just go, okay, this question, next question. But again, to sit in curiosity with each question and go, where am I really in this process? The point of the quiz is to uncover different areas of life of where are you in touch with your joy and where are you not that much in touch with your joy that you need to kind of focus on a little more. So it's simply it's a starting point of shining a light on where you may need to focus and where your life is really in flow. And
Okay.
sometimes it's not the areas we think. So
Right.
it's good to take a look and to take a look every now and again because things change.
It's true. And I'll put the link to your website as well as the link to the gift in the show notes so you can
Thank you.
check that. Um, it has been, like I said, this has been so much fun.
It's
I
been
loved our
really great.
conversation.
Thank you for having me on.
I think we should do it again
Love
sometime.
chatting to you.
Let's do it again sometime and
Absolutely.
talk more mindset. And because it is so, it drives so much of our lives
Yeah.
that we think that we, the conscious mind, are in control. But the subconscious is in the driver's seat so much of the time, and we don't even notice it because the subconscious does not want us to notice that it's in control because then we might make things uncomfortable for it. We might be a threat to
Might want to
its.
change something. Step out, do something new.
That's right. So I love digging into mindset, subconscious programming, stuff like that. Fascinating, fascinating. So thanks so much. And thank you for listening. We will be back next week. Talk to you then.